On December 22nd, my wife and I drove up to her parents' lake house in northern Minnesota to spend Christmas together. The place sat at the very end of a plowed road, surrounded by trees and frozen water, the kind of quiet that feels heavier at night. Cell service dropped about a mile before the house, something I remembered but didn't think twice about. It was Christmas. We were supposed to relax. Her parents wouldn't arrive until the next evening. We were there first to heat the house, decorate, and get things ready. Snow had already fallen that morning, fresh and untouched, stretching perfectly smooth from the tree line to the back deck. That night, around 11 p.m., I noticed footprints. They came from the woods. They stopped at the edge of the deck. They didn't go anywhere else. I asked my wife if she'd gone outside earlier. She hadn't. We both stood at the sliding glass door, staring at them, trying to rationalize it. Maybe someone had been hiking earlier in the day. Maybe the wind distorted them. Eventually, we convinced ourselves it was nothing and locked the door. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not pounding, not frantic. Slow, steady, intentional, 3 knocks. A pause, 3 more. It wasn't the front door. It was coming from the glass behind the house. I didn't move at first. I just listened. My wife whispered my name, already scared. When I finally stood and pulled the curtain back an inch, I saw him. A man stood at the edge of the deck, just beyond the light spilling from inside. He wore a dark winter coat and no hat. Snow dusted his shoulders like he'd been standing there for a while. His face was angled down, but I could see his mouth moving. Knock, knock, knock. I slid the door open just enough to speak. My voice didn't sound like mine. "Can I help you?" The man looked up. His face was pale and too still. "I think I have the wrong house," he said calmly, "but I don't want to be alone on Christmas." Every instinct told me to close the door. Instead, I told him the place was private property and he needed to leave. He nodded, stepped back into the darkness, and disappeared between the trees. I locked everything, checked every room, didn't sleep after that. In the morning, the footprints were back. Only this time, they started at the deck and led straight into the woods. Her parents arrived that evening just before sunset. The house filled with noise, laughter, and the smell of food, and for a while the night before felt distant, almost embarrassing to bring up. I didn't mention the man. I told myself that if I spoke it out loud, it would make it real again. Christmas Eve came with heavy snow. By nightfall, the woods were swallowed in darkness. Around 10 p.m., the power flickered once, then stayed on. That was when my father-in-law frowned and said, "Did one of you go out back earlier?" We hadn't. There were footprints again. Several sets this time. They circled the deck slowly, unevenly, as if someone had paced there for a long time. One set stood apart, close to the glass, toes pointed directly toward the door. That night, no one slept well. Just after 3 a.m., the knocking came back. This time, everyone heard it. Slow, calm, patient. My father-in-law grabbed a flashlight and shouted through the glass, demanding whoever it was to leave. The knocking stopped. For a few seconds, there was only the wind. Then a voice came from outside. "I don't like the cold," it said, "and I don't like being ignored." The voice wasn't angry. That made it worse. We called the police, but with the storm and the distance, they said it would take time. While we waited, something brushed against the glass. Not a hand, a face. I saw it clearly for half a second, pressed flat, smiling. When the officers finally arrived, there was no one there. No footprints either. The snow around the house was untouched. They stayed for 10 minutes and left. We packed up at dawn and never spent another Christmas there. Last year, the lake house was sold. 2 weeks ago, my wife received a forwarded piece of mail from the new owners. Inside was a photo. It showed the back deck, taken at night, and someone standing just beyond the light, facing the glass, waiting. It was December 21st when I arrived at my friend's family cabin in Vermont. Snow had fallen heavily the week before, leaving the small road nearly impassable. My friend, Sam, had insisted we come early to get the real Christmas experience. Quiet nights, crackling fires, and the kind of isolation only miles of frozen forest could provide. The cabin was small but cozy, perched on a slope with a view of the frozen river. Sam's parents wouldn't arrive until the 23rd, leaving just the two of us. The first evening passed without incident. We hung decorations, lit the fireplace, and drank hot cocoa while watching old Christmas specials. The silence outside felt perfect, almost comforting. Around 11:30 p.m., I woke to a soft, metallic scraping. At first, I thought it was ice sliding off the roof. But then I heard it again, closer, deliberate, coming from the front porch. Sam was already asleep in the living room, so I slipped on my slippers and peered through the window. Nothing. Shaking it off, I returned to my room. Minutes later, a shadow passed across the frosted window pane. My heart stopped. Whoever or whatever it wasn't moving like a person. It didn't step. It floated. I grabbed my phone and dialed Sam's number, my hands trembling. No answer. The footsteps, or whatever they were, shifted to the back of the cabin. My dog, Max, growled low and long. The sound made me realize the danger wasn't imaginary. I grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the back door. The snow outside was undisturbed, except for a single set of footprints leading from the tree line to the porch. They stopped at the steps. On the porch, something was waiting. A small wooden figure, crudely carved and painted, sat in the middle of the snow. A child's Santa figurine. Its eyes, tiny black beads, seemed to glint in the flashlight. In its hands was a note folded neatly. I hesitated before picking it up. My fingers shook as I unfolded it. "I see you. I'm coming back for Christmas Eve." Before I could react, the flashlight flickered, plunging me into darkness. Max barked furiously, and then the house grew silent again. Too silent. The rest of the night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the fire, listening, imagining footsteps circling outside, knowing that something or someone was waiting, watching, planning. And when dawn came, the footprints were still there, fresh, leading nowhere. That evening, December 24th, the wind howled through the trees like a living thing. Sam's parents had arrived, filling the cabin with warmth and chatter, but I couldn't shake the unease. Every creak, every rustle outside made my stomach knot. Around 10 p.m., I went to check the porch. The snow had been shoveled, but the single set of footprints from the previous night had returned. They led from the tree line, stopped at the porch, and then continued toward the back deck. A sudden thump came from the roof. I froze. Max growled, ears pinned back, staring at the ceiling. My heart hammered. I grabbed the flashlight and slowly crept outside. The deck was empty. But there, pressed into the snow, were dozens of small wooden figures, dozens of little Santas, each slightly different, each holding a folded note. My hands shook as I opened one. "You can't hide. See you soon." I turned to run back inside, and a movement caught my eye. In the tree line, a figure stood perfectly still. Tall, thin, wrapped in shadows, holding a wooden Santa like the ones on the deck. It didn't walk. It didn't move naturally. It just waited. I slammed the door and locked it. Sam's parents laughed nervously, thinking I was joking, but my fear was real. I called the police. With the storm, they said it could take hours. Then the tapping started, light, rhythmic, against every window, every wall. The sound grew louder, closer. I backed into a corner, clutching Max, trying to ignore it. At midnight, everything stopped. Silence. I dared to look outside. The deck was empty, the snow untouched. We left at dawn. The cabin stood silent, abandoned again, but when I checked my phone that morning, there was a photo. Taken overnight. On the porch. A shadowy figure, tall and still, holding one of the wooden Santas. And written in the snow at its feet, the words, "Merry Christmas." I've never returned, and I never will. Every holiday since, I feel it watching from the dark, waiting to make sure I remember its gift. It was December 22nd when I volunteered to work the overnight shift at Pinewood Toys, a small family-owned toy store in upstate New York. My manager insisted that staying late to organize inventory before Christmas would be quiet and simple. Quiet, maybe. Simple, not at all. The snowstorm outside made the streets empty, the kind of silence that presses against the walls until it feels physical. I was alone in the store by 8 p.m., arranging shelves and checking the display window when I noticed something strange. The animatronic Santa at the entrance, the one that waved and laughed when kids pressed the button, wasn't facing forward. It was turned slightly, head tilted as if watching me. I froze. The store had been closed for hours. No one had come in. Brushing it off, I turned my attention back to the shelves. But then came the sound of tiny footsteps, wooden, echoing on the laminate floor. I stopped and listened. Nothing. The toy aisles were empty. I laughed nervously. "Okay, store ghosts," I muttered. Minutes later, the footsteps came again, louder this time, moving between the shelves in a slow, deliberate rhythm. I grabbed a flashlight and started walking through the aisles, shining the beam everywhere. Nothing. Then I saw it. A small doll sitting upright on the floor. Not on a shelf, not in a display. It had bright blue eyes and a stitched smile, wearing a reddened green knitted sweater. Its head slowly turned toward me. I stumbled backward. A whisper came from behind the aisles, soft but unmistakable. "I've been waiting for you." I spun around, but the store was empty. The animatronic Santa was laughing again, though I hadn't pressed the button. Its voice was distorted, lower, and almost human. Panicked, I ran toward the back exit, only to find that the door I'd unlocked earlier was now locked tight. The snowstorm raged outside, pounding against the windows like fists. And then I noticed the dolls. Hundreds of them, all seated neatly in the aisles I had just checked. Eyes fixed on me. Small hands extended as if waiting for something. The whisper came again. "It's Christmas. You'll stay forever." I backed away, trapped, the door rattling under my grip. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, the store had gone completely silent, except for the sound of tiny, rhythmic footsteps moving closer. I barely remembered running through the aisles, the flashlight shaking so hard the beam danced across the walls. The dolls didn't move like people. They didn't walk. They glided, sliding just above the floor, one by one, circling me, eyes fixed, smiles stitched wide. I tried the back door again. Still locked. The windows? Frosted solid, no way out. My phone was dead, though I had fully charged it an hour before. Every instinct screamed to escape, but there was nowhere to go. Then the animatronic Santa spoke again, clearer this time. Its voice was soft, almost pleasant. "You shouldn't have stayed late. Now you belong to Christmas." I screamed, swinging the flashlight at it. The light caught the doll's eyes. They blinked. Slowly, synchronously, like real children. I stumbled back, tripping over a pile of stuffed animals. When I looked up, the dolls had formed a line, stretching from the front display to the back door, their tiny hands raised. "Please," I whispered, but the store seemed to lean in closer, the shelves bending, shadows thickening. Something cold brushed against my ankle. I looked down. A doll, larger than the others, stepped forward. Its face was perfectly human, but its eyes were empty. It whispered, "Play with us." I lunged at the emergency exit, finally noticing the panel above the door. I slammed my palm against it. Sparks flew. The lock clicked. I threw the door open and bolted into the snowstorm. The wind cut at my face, the cold shocking me awake to reality, or what I hoped was reality. When I looked back, the store was dark and quiet. No footprints led back. No sound of dolls. Just the snow, covering everything like nothing had happened. I never went back to Pinewood Toys. But every Christmas Eve since, I swear I hear soft laughter outside my window, and when I look, I see a small figure in red and green, standing perfectly still in the snow. Waiting, always watching. And I know that one night, if I'm alone long enough, it will come inside. It was December 24th when I agreed to house sit for my neighbor, Mrs. Carmichael, a retired librarian who lived 3 streets over in my small Vermont town. She had a tradition of decorating every room for Christmas, filling the house with miniature trees, candles, and dozens of antique ornaments. She warned me, "It's quiet here at night, but that's how I like it." The first few hours were peaceful. I unpacked groceries, lit the fireplaces, and admired the decorations. Outside, the snow fell silently, the streets empty and still. I put on a Christmas record and settled into the living room, planning to read until midnight. Around 11:30 p.m., I noticed something strange. The music stopped abruptly, as if someone had hit pause. I checked the player, nothing. The room was warm, lit only by the flickering fireplace, yet a cold draft brushed my neck. I turned around and my stomach dropped. On the mantel, one of the ornaments, a small glass angel, was missing. I had placed it there earlier. Now it sat on the floor, cracked, its wings chipped. I picked it up. The faintest sound of whispering came from upstairs. My heart raced. "Hello," I called. No answer. I told myself it was the wind, the house settling, maybe even my imagination. But when I glanced at the staircase, I noticed a shadow at the top, tall and thin, leaning over the railing. The shape didn't move like a person. It swayed unnaturally, almost floating. I froze. The record began playing again, softly, almost too softly. Its melody warped, slowed, distorted. Then I heard it, a low, deliberate knock. Not from the front door, not the back. It came from the walls themselves, a hollow sound that echoed through the floors. Tap, tap, tap. I backed away, heart hammering, scanning the room. Every tree, every decoration seemed to tremble. Another knock, louder this time, followed by a whisper. "Your Christmas is ready." I ran to the kitchen, thinking maybe someone had broken in. The snow outside was untouched. No footprints, no signs of entry. The whisper came again, this time behind me, soft but unmistakable. "Don't hide." I spun around. Nothing. Yet the air felt thick, heavy, as if the room itself was pressing closer. I grabbed my coat and keys. I needed to get out, but when I reached the front door, it wouldn't budge. No matter how hard I pushed or pulled, it stayed locked, as if glued shut. Then I heard it. The sound of dozens of tiny, deliberate footsteps moving upstairs, circling the rooms above me. The whisper came one final time before I backed into the living room corner. Time to join the celebration. And just like that, the music stopped. The fireplace dimmed. The house fell into an oppressive, silent darkness, broken only by the faint sound of something breathing somewhere above. I couldn't stay put. I forced myself to climb the staircase, each step creaking under my weight, though I could hear lighter, faster steps circling above me, as if anticipating my every move. The upstairs hallway stretched endlessly in the dim candlelight, doors on either side slightly ajar. The whisper followed me, softer now, more playful. "Almost here, almost ready." I tried the guest room first. Empty. The window wide open, snow drifting onto the carpet. Next door, the master bedroom. Empty again, but every ornament on the dresser had been rearranged. Tiny figurines forming a circle, facing inward, toward something invisible in the center. Then I saw it, the shape in the corner. Tall, thin, draped in shadow, its head tilted unnaturally, fingers stretched like branches. It didn't move as I approached, it waited. Leave now," I whispered. But the air thickened, and a cold, dry hand seemed to brush my arm. I spun, and it was closer than before. Not quite touching, yet I felt its presence in my chest, in my bones. I backed toward the hallway, heart racing. All the doors slammed shut at once, a deafening clatter that made me stumble. The whisper became laughter, low, hollow, echoing off the walls. "The celebration can't start without you." Desperate, I dove through the nearest window. Glass shattered, snow stung my face, and I ran, bare hands and shoes slick with ice. The street was empty, the night silent. I didn't stop until the warm glow of my neighbor's porch light came into view. The next morning, Mrs. Carmichael returned. I told her nothing of the night, but when she opened the guest room window to air it out, she froze. On the carpet, circling the same invisible center, dozens of tiny footprints had been pressed into the snow-dusted floor, and in the middle lay a small, twisted ornament, an angel with black eyes and a crooked smile. I left immediately, vowing never to return. Even now, every Christmas Eve, I can't shake the feeling that someone or something is still inside that house, waiting for the next visitor, ready to include them in the celebration I barely escaped. It was Christmas Eve when my brother, Alex, and I decided to explore the abandoned church at the edge of town. Nobody had set foot there in decades. The locals whispered stories of a priest who vanished one night, leaving the church locked and cursed. We didn't believe in curses, we believed in adventure, and the heavy snow made it feel cinematic, like a scene from a holiday movie gone wrong. The church loomed through the blizzard, its steeple broken, windows shattered. I shivered, pulling my coat tighter. Alex pushed the door open, and it creaked like a scream. Inside, the air was cold, dry, and smelled faintly of burnt wood and old incense. The pews were covered in dust, and broken ornaments littered the floor. I laughed nervously, shining my flashlight around. "Looks like Santa skipped this one," I said. Alex didn't answer. He was staring at the altar. A Christmas tree stood there, impossibly pristine, decorated with candles that burned without melting. Tiny wooden dolls hung from the branches, all facing forward. Then I noticed the first weird thing. The dolls had faces that looked eerily like townspeople we knew, teachers, shopkeepers, neighbors. "Someone's messing with us," I whispered. But as I stepped closer, a soft voice echoed from the rafters. "Welcome to the service." Alex froze. I turned the flashlight upward. Nothing. The voice came again, closer, clearer. "Join us!" Suddenly, the tree flickered. Candles flared, then dimmed. The dolls began to sway, all at once their tiny faces twisting into expressions of anger, fear, and pain. I stepped back, my heart hammering. Alex grabbed my arm, whispering, "We should leave." I turned toward the exit. The door slammed shut on its own. The windows rattled violently. I ran back to the altar, thinking maybe there was a back exit, but the air was thick now, almost solid. I could hear footsteps, or something walking on the wooden floor above. Then the most impossible thing happened. The dolls started moving. Not sliding or falling, they crawled, inching toward us, limbs jerky, heads cocked unnaturally. The faces shifted, now showing our own reflections in their black, glossy eyes. Alex screamed. I grabbed his hand and tried to pull him away, but the air around the altar seemed to resist. The voice spoke again, this time from inside my own head. "You came alone. Now the congregation is complete." We backed into a corner. The temperature dropped. My breath formed clouds, and when I looked up, the candles on the tree were dripping blood, pooling around the doll's feet. A shadow moved behind the altar, a figure tall, hooded, faceless. It raised its hands, and the dolls froze, then slowly began crawling toward us again. We had one choice: run through the snow, out into the blizzard, or be trapped in that church forever. We bolted toward the rear exit, the dolls trailing just behind us, their tiny hands scraping against the floor. The air thickened, each step feeling heavier, like we were running through water. Alex yanked the door handle, and it finally gave. Snow and wind slammed into us as we tumbled outside, gasping, hearts hammering. We ran blindly, leaving the church behind. The blizzard swallowed the sound of our footsteps, yet when I glanced back, the stained windows glowed faintly red, as if the church itself were alive, watching. Hours later, we stumbled into the town square, disoriented and frozen. The streets were empty, strangely silent. No lights, no Christmas decorations. Only one detail unsettled me most. Every storefront window displayed dolls. Hundreds of them, each with a twisted smile. faces of neighbors, family, even strangers we had passed on the road. A whisper came from behind me, soft, cold, unmistakable. "The congregation grows." I spun around. Nobody was there, only the snow, thick and unbroken. Then Alex screamed. He pointed to the town hall. Its doors slowly creaked open. From inside, dozens of dolls marched in perfect unison, moving on their own, entering the building. And standing among them, tall and faceless, the same shadowy figure from the church raised its hands in welcome. We tried to run further, but the streets had changed. Every turn led us back to the square. Each doorway, each alley, mirrored the church's interior, candles flickering, dolls arranged in concentric circles, waiting. Panic clawed at me. I realized then that the town itself had become part of the ritual. The blizzard wasn't snow. It was a veil, hiding the real congregation from the world outside. The last thing I remember before the world went black was the voice inside my head again, gentle, almost cheerful. "Christmas is for everyone now, it's your turn." When I awoke, I was sitting upright in the town square. The snow had stopped. The dolls were gone. The church, the town, everything seemed normal, but the wind carried a faint, whispering laughter. And deep down, I knew that this was not the last Christmas I would spend with the congregation waiting in the shadows. It was Christmas Eve, when my friend Emma invited me to her family's vineyard in Northern California. The estate was old, sprawling, and famous for its holiday decorations. Thousands of twinkling lights draped over the grapevines, giant wreaths on every door, and a massive tree in the courtyard. Emma said the property was magical at night, but I felt uneasy the moment we arrived. The fog rolling off the hills made the lights blur into ghostly shapes. We spent the evening helping her family prepare for the big Christmas dinner. The adults fussed in the kitchen, while Emma and I arranged the tables, laughing nervously about ghost stories we'd grown up hearing in our small town. The vineyard was isolated, neighbors were miles away, and the fog muffled every sound. At midnight, everyone went to the main house for carols and drinks. I stayed behind to check the outdoor lights, walking the cobbled paths between the grapevines. That's when I saw it, a figure standing among the vines, unmoving, dressed in a faded Santa coat. Its face was hidden beneath the hood, but the silhouette was distinctly human. "Hello!" I called, my voice tight. The figure didn't move. I stepped closer. My foot caught a vine and it rattled. The figure turned slowly, head tilting unnaturally. That's when I noticed the smile, a carved wooden mask that didn't belong to a human face. Before I could react, the lights flickered. One by one, the Christmas lanterns went out, plunging the vineyard into darkness. A whisper carried through the fog. "You've been chosen." I spun around to run, but the paths seemed different. The rows of grapevines stretched farther than before, twisting impossibly. I could hear soft footsteps behind me, not on gravel or dirt, but on the snow that hadn't been there moments ago. Then I realized something terrifying. The footprints didn't belong to me. They were small. Dozens of them surrounding me, circling closer and closer, all leading to the masked figure now advancing silently. I tried calling Emma, but my phone showed no signal. Every light in the courtyard flickered and went out at once, leaving me in pitch black. The figure's wooden mask caught the faint moonlight, and I could swear its carved eyes were watching me, following me. Before I could move, dozens of small, shrill voices joined the whisper. "Christmas is ours, you cannot leave." I stumbled backward, tripping over something cold and solid. When I looked down, dozens of tiny masks, like the one the figure wore, covered the path, each etched with a smile that seemed alive. My heart raced. I knew then that this was no prank, no decoration. The vineyard itself had changed, and whatever had been waiting here for centuries had finally chosen tonight. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering, and ran blindly through the fog-shrouded vineyard. The rows of grapevines seemed endless, twisting unnaturally, the ground soft beneath my shoes, littered with broken masks. The whispering voices multiplied, echoing from every direction. "You cannot leave! You cannot leave!" I tripped again and fell against a wooden post. In the moonlight, I saw them. Tiny figures crawling from the vines, each wearing a miniature wooden mask. Their bodies were stiff, puppet-like, yet they moved with purpose, forming a circle around me. The masked figure appeared at the edge of the circle, silent, its carved eyes glinting. It lifted a hand, and the tiny figures mimicked the motion perfectly. I realized then that the masks were not decorations, they were vessels. The vineyard had been collecting souls for decades, trapping them inside these wooden forms. Desperate, I remembered the wine cellar beneath the main house. Maybe, just maybe, I could escape through there. I dashed toward the lights of the house, but the paths kept twisting, as if the vineyard itself was alive, redirecting me. The fog thickened, and the shrill voices rose to a scream. Finally, I spotted the cellar door, half hidden behind a snow-draped grapevine. I yanked it open and slammed it shut behind me, plunging into darkness. The temperature dropped, the smell of earth and damp wood filling my lungs. I ran blindly, descending deeper until I saw a faint light through a crack in the far wall. I pushed it open and found myself back in the courtyard. The masked figure stood directly in front of me, impossibly still, dozens of tiny masked figures at its feet. But then something changed. Its mask cracked slightly, revealing a human face beneath. Pale, hollow, eyes wide with terror, the previous victims trapped for decades. The figure whispered one final warning. "Next Christmas, it chooses again." Before I could react, the courtyard lights flickered back on. The fog vanished, the vineyard returned to normal, and the tiny masks scattered like harmless toys. I was alone, trembling, clutching my coat. I left immediately, vowing never to return. But every Christmas Eve, when the fog rolls in and the lights blink in the distance, I swear I hear soft whispers from the vineyard, counting down, waiting for the next visitor to be chosen. Those were 6 chilling Christmas tales, and if you enjoyed them, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button so you never miss a scare. And tell me, which story scared you the most? Or do you have a terrifying holiday experience to share? Comment below. I love reading your stories.